Hello guys, Dr. Beri. So I wanted to make this video very short and sweet and kind of make it more of an intro video to understanding Ayurveda from a physician's perspective, like a Western physician perspective coming from the Western world. And now we're approaching a time period where more and more integrative medicine is expected. It's welcomed in not only in the healthcare community but also in our patients. And Eastern sciences like Ayurveda, Siddha medicine, and yoga science is given a lot of importance. So just to kind of make a quick 10-15 minute video of understanding what are the basic elements of Ayurveda. And for those of you who are interested in kind of going deeper and really understanding the gist of pathogenesis of disease and how they understand the body and look at it in a more detailed way, there's going to be opportunities later on. We'll have a short course and stuff like that for you. But this is something I just wanted to kind of bring out from a physician's perspective, from a scientist's perspective. I always look at the body not just as an organ. I always say it's so many different things that form the body, multidimensional body, and that's what I respect about Eastern science, is they really bring into the perspective that the body's multidimensional, that we're not just treating one organ. We're really treating the body as a whole, the person as a whole, and not just the person, the environment that the person is in. So kind of keeping that background in mind. The very interesting thing that Ayurveda does, first of all, the meaning of Ayurveda is, Ayur is like life and Veda is knowledge. So it's the knowledge of life. And that's what Ayurveda stands for. It did originate in India, and it's very ancient, probably 3,000-4,000 years old. There's one specific text in the Vedas, which is a series of sacred texts that were written thousands of years ago by rishis that meditated, and a lot of this knowledge came to them in meditation. So it came as a almost like I like to call a download of information from higher source, and that kind of translated into or culminated into this understanding of the human body, the nature of the body, and the nature of creation in general. So in Ayurveda, that is called Prakriti, or the nature of things, or Prakriti. So they look at everything in creation to be made of 5 elements. Okay, so we have fire, we have water, we have earth, we have ether or space, and we have air. So these are the 5 elements that Ayurveda feels that everything in the universe is made of these 5 elements. And it just depends on the proportion of those elements within the actual, materialistic thing that gives it the qualities that it has. So just the way it considers, obviously, the universe made of these, elements, so is the human body. And how they categorize, or I want to say like a phenotypic representation of the different variations of these elements is understood in the concept of dosha. So you have, just the way in Western medicine we look at genotype and phenotype, like these genes in certain combinations is going to give you this physical representation or this physical manifestation, like curly hair, straight hair, tall, short. So that is what the doshas represent. They represent the Prakriti, they represent the physical manifestation of the different variations of these elements. And the doshas are 3 types. There is Vata, there is Pitta, and there's Kapha. Now, a lot of, how one can assess what your dosha is, there is, very easily available, like a questionnaire. And we will include that if for those of you who are interested, definitely comment, and there's a way we can give you a sample of that questionnaire that we use here at the spa at Be Mind Body Skin, and that's we practice vibrational cosmetics, which is integrative cosmetics, and we definitely look into the dosha of the patient. And I'll explain more why I find that very fascinating when I'm dealing with a patient that does cosmetics with me or is interested in skincare, because it's obviously not just the skin that I'm treating the person as a whole. We'll go back into understanding the three basic types of combinations that they look at, and that is Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So Vata is predominantly your air element, air and space element. Your Pitta is predominantly like fire with water or earth, and your Kapha is a lot of earth with water and some, maybe a little bit of fire, but predominantly it's earth. So it's very interesting when you categorize these three dosha types, because when you learn about the qualities of each dosha, it's once the patient has given you the assessment of what dosha they're predominantly are, there's like a slew of information just that dosha type gives you, and everything from their emotional behavior to the types of food they might like, to their mental reaction to a lot of situations in life, to a lot of common diseases they might express or they might be prone to. And it tells you a lot about how certain things might cause an imbalance in their body, and what things you can recommend. So it is definitely an important intake when you want to do integrative therapy. So going into Vata predominantly air. Typically these patients, they're shorter, leaner built. They tend to be, Vata, the quality of Vata air is all about movement. Okay, so it's all about, like, these patients are, a little anxious and they're quick. They want to get a lot of things done, but not a lot of things get done because they're always jumping from one to the other. So that's like a very mental quality. And they tend to get a little bit more anxious, especially when the Vata is excess Vata. And they tend to also have drier skin. So just the way we have Vata, Pitta, and Kapha body types. It's also considered that Vata, Pitta, and Kapha can happen during it can vary in while you're like in the duration of your life. So when you're born, you're a little bit more Kapha, like you're kind of calm and earthy, and you're like kind of grounded. And then as you get into your teenage years and like those early adult years, you're Pitta, because you're always like moving, fire. There's a lot of stuff happening. And then you go into your older age group, or as you're getting older, there's more Vata. So Vata, another quality of Vata is basically dryness. So we'll go, there's going to be a link to a blog that's going to give specifically about each of these doshas and each of these traits. So you'll have more details to read if you're interested, but this is more of like a brief overview. The other thing is Pitta. So Pitta is, I want to say 98% of the Northeast, and Pitta is predominantly fire. So these are your typical patients that are OCD, that want everything done at the right time. They are going to process the information very quickly because their brains are working really fast. They're usually professionals, so a lot of physicians are Pitta. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are Pitta. And it's basically just a high stress, high anxiety level, high, a lot of anger, a lot of, wanting things that are, and depending on your dosha type, you're also attracted to that in life as well. So you tend to want to have your meals really quick. You like the spicy food. You're going to have a lot of coffee. You love the coffee because just like your Pitta, the coffee has Pitta. So you're taking fire on fire, and what that happens, it leads to the overdose of the fire within your body. And so Pittas are usually very successful in life. They definitely are overachievers, OCD, and they also deal with, because, and when I think about Pittas, their metabolic rate is very, very fast. So vatas, we spoke about, is more about movement. So there's a lot of like, and physiologically, when I think about it, it's like their blood flow, their lymphatics, and you know, I think about movement of air. So that's all of that is like your vata. And then pitta is more like metabolic activity within the body. So metabolism in the body, which is you know, your metabolic processes are very fast, very quick, especially if pitta is an overdose. So when they do like a dosha evaluation and you see like the pitta is really, you know, very high, you know that these patients are very, very metabolically active. Their pH is usually very low. Their digestive juices are very, very like super active. They get, you know, the typical conditions they deal with is like, you know, acidity. You have inflammatory bowel disease, your acne, you know, a lot of things that express on the skin, like eczema, psoriasis, a lot of inflammatory conditions, like your joint conditions, are very prone in pittas. And I also want to say aging is a lot faster in pittas because there's just breakdown, there's just the metabolic rate is very high. So that's your typical pitta. And then when you come to kapha I like to think of as the more earth element, right? So it's definitely more conserving. It's these patients are typically a little overweight. They tend to be like, oh, you know what, I'm good with life, I'm good with everything, I'm just gonna stay indoors. And the kapha, you know, and I'll talk about the seasons as well because the different doshas vary according to season too. So your typical, you know, winter bear who wants to just kind of cuddle up and stay in one place, and they're just like your mama bears, you want to go hug them because, you know, they're always very, very grounded. They're very like, you know, kind of centered and calm. And well, when the kapha is an overdose, these are also the patients that usually deal with obesity, they deal with hypothyroid. They're the ones who also have, you know, depression. They can deal with lack of motivation. So a lot of those, when the kapha is imbalanced, are typical symptoms of the imbalance of kapha. So when you do a questionnaire, when you answer the questionnaire and you find out what your dosha type is, it just tells you what your phenotype is. It just tells you that that's predominantly your personality or that's your body type. When it comes to the disease process, it's really the pathogenesis of understanding what creates a disease is very unique in Ayurveda, and I really, really respect that. And I feel it's all about like when, like I was giving you the example of the coffee, you are already a pitta and your metabolic rate is really fast, and just like in nature, everything is made of 5 elements, and you end up taking more of those elements that are the same that you have too much of, you're going to cause an imbalance, and that imbalance tends to leak as the disease process within the body. And that's basically the pathogenesis of disease in Ayurveda in a nutshell. There's a lot more to that, but in a nutshell, that's what it is, just from a physician's perspective, to kind of just give you an overview. But there's a lot more to read, obviously, and that information is going to be available in the blogs, and we do hope to do like a more in-depth kind of course on Ayurveda as well for those of you who want to do that. That's something that we're going to be working on as well. But as far as the scope of this video, I wanted to kind of just keep it brief and just give you like a brief understanding. There's also seasonal variation. So your typical pitta season is summertime, so it's always hot. You know, you're hot inside, you're hot outside. It's your typical fire season. Your fall is where your vata season, so it's kind of cool and clammy, and your typical vata person is going to be very uncomfortable. They start getting anxious, and they're cool and clammy inside, and they're cool and clammy outside, so that's like makes them very, very uncomfortable. Same thing with pitta, they're very uncomfortable in the summertime. And your kapha season, which is wintertime, your typical kaphas are just, they're usually those winter bears, and in like really cold weather, they're even more. So they want to like wrap up. They don't want to move. They just want to sit at home and, you know, be on the couch and watch TV and eat. So those are your typical seasons that imbalance the vata, pitta, and kapha as well. In another video, we'll go a little bit more in depth with how these elements, you know, are a part of the multidimensional body, especially of, you know, the Anamaya Kosha, which is the physical body. There are 5 layers. And then we have the 3 bodies, which is the you know, physical body, the astral body, and the causal body. And we'll talk about that in another video, but this is mainly to focus on the 5 elements and the 5 doshas. I'm sorry, the 3 doshas and the 5 elements. So don't forget to subscribe and like, and if you have any questions, you can definitely comment below. Otherwise, you know how to reach us. All right. See you later, guys.